Welcome to the crime chapter. Crime insurance is pretty simple to understand. It protects a business if somebody either burglarizes or robs them. This chapter will also be where we find out about bonds. We'll talk about bonds near the end of the chapter, but this crime and bond chapter will be a good portion of your test, but it's relatively simple. Just to start off, crime insurance covers theft, and there's two primary types of theft. There's burglary and robbery. All burglaries are theft, but not all thefts are burglary. All robberies are theft, but not all thefts are robbery. So for example, if somebody puts a gun in your face and says, "Give me all your money," that's robbery, which is theft. But if somebody takes merchandise off the shelf and leaves, that's theft, but not robbery. Burglary will be when a person has the visible, forced signs of entry or exit. Robbery is the threat of violence, or if they actually do the violence. So burglary is essentially when you steal from a place, but you leave evidence and you didn't scare anybody. Burglary would be a store is closed and somebody breaks a window and then takes some stuff out, takes some merchandise. Robbery is when you say, "Give me all your money." And then theft is shoplifting or any other act of stealing. So let's learn more about the crime chapter. As we just discussed, burglary is the visible forced signs of entry and or exit. Robbery is the forced stealing with a theft, with a threat. Theft is any act of stealing. A watchman is known as a security guard. A security guard is a watchman. A custodian is somebody who has care, custody, and control of property. If you remember earlier what a bailee was a dry cleaner, a TV repair shop, a jeweler. Bailees are also custodians. Custodians are people who have care, custody, and control of property. That'd be somebody who holds onto your stuff. A messenger is somebody who delivers property, typically making bank deposits. So let's say a convenience store, at the end of the day, they have to take their cash to the bank. That's the messenger who takes the cash to the bank. So burglary is the visible forced signs of entry or exit. A watchman is a security guard. A custodian is somebody who has care, custody, and control of property. That's like a bailee. A messenger is somebody who delivers, such as making bank deposits. Robbery is the forced stealing with a threat of violence. And then theft is any act of stealing. If you ever see the word larceny, that also means theft. So now let's do some scenarios. Let's say that a person is hiding in the bathroom and the store closes. Then they exit the bathroom, take some stuff off the racks, and then break a window on their way out. Is that burglary or robbery? It's burglary. Now let's say that a messenger is delivering money to the bank, and then a person puts a gun in their face and says, "Give me all their money." Robbery. Now let's say that you have a safe, the things with the lock that you put money in and valuables in. You have a safe, and overnight somebody steals the safe. Burglary. That's known as safe burglary. When somebody either breaks into a safe or steals a safe, that falls under safe burglary, unless you left the safe open. Then it's not covered. Now, in order to prove burglary, a lot of businesses have opted into having security guards and cameras. If a person forces the security guard to open up the premises, or if you put a gun in the watchman's face, the security guard's face, that falls under burglary. Security guards are just like cameras. If you disable a security guard, it's just like turning a camera sideways. That would be your visible for signs of entry or exit. The businesses have to prove that it wasn't an inside job because crime insurance does not protect you if an employee steals. That's known as an employee dishonesty, and that is excluded under crime insurance. So if you mess with the security guard, that is still known as burglary. Even if you threaten the security guard, it's still burglary. Now, if you threaten the cashier, robbery. But the security guard is just like a camera. So if you mess with the security guard, it's just like messing with a camera. That still falls under burglary. So burglary is the visible for signs of entry or exit. That's usually when a store is closed after hours and the security guard is on duty. Robbery is typically when you're open. That's when you threaten somebody. A messenger is somebody making bank deposits. Now, what if somebody just takes material off the shelf again? Theft. That's just shoplifting. That's theft. Doesn't fall under burglary or robbery. Now, the different merchandise that people steal has different definitions. Money falls under any currency, coins, checks, or money orders. That's just regular old money. Securities, though, a person steals other types of checks, stamps, drafts, stocks, or bonds. If the check was filled out, that would fall under money. But if the check was blank, that falls under securities. Securities are typically documents that are stolen. So like stocks and bonds are actual documents that could be stolen. There's also inside the premises and outside the premises robbery coverages. Inside the premises is if somebody actually walks onto your location, robs you. Outside the premises is when they robbed the messenger. If you deal in a lot of money, the insurance company might require you to get an armored car or to even have an escort with the armored car that has a weapon. If you transport expensive stuff through like the mail, sometimes you have to send it registered mail. And if it travels by train, sometimes it has to have its own train car that it's locked into. Outside the premises theft, robbery is kind of a big deal. So the insurance companies really don't like companies that transport expensive things. So inside the premises only covers you if you are stolen from on premises. Outside is typically if you're transporting material. Usually you have to have a security guard or an armed presence to transport expensive things. Crime will not cover if the employee steals or if the owner embezzles in the company. If you steal from your own company, you are not covered. So crime insurance is very simple. It covers burglary and robbery and theft. Typically, you have to prove it by having some camera or security guard. And then there's on-premises and off-premises robbery. We do not cover if you steal from your own company or your employees steal from your company either. Now let's talk about bonding. There's going to be around 1 to 3 questions on your test about bonds. A bond is known as a guarantee of performance, also known as a promise. Bonds do not protect the purchaser. Bonds protect other people from the person who bought the bond. So we've all probably heard of a bail bond before, so let's talk about that. In a bail bond, the principal, also known as the obligor, is the purchaser of the bond. So like that's the defendant. The principal is the one that has to buy the bond. You buy a bond from a surety. A surety is an insurance company. That's who the bail bondsman represents. So the defendant purchases a bond from the surety, and they make a promise to the obligee that they're going to show up to court. There are three parties to a bond. The principal, also known as the obligor, that's the purchaser, the surety, that's the insurance company, and the obligee, who the guarantee was made to. So let's say that you robbed a store, and it was your first offense, so the court says, we'll let you out on bond, but you have to show up to your next court date. And they set your bond at $1 million. You might not have $1 million lying around just to give the court. So what you'll do is you'll go to a bail bondsman who represents a surety, and they typically charge 10% of the bond. So you'll give the bail bondsman $100,000. They'll put up to the court the $1 million. That's a guarantee that you'll show up. When you show up to court, the surety, the insurance company, gets their money back. But if you skip bond, you don't show up to court, then the surety, the insurance company, has to pay the court the $1 million. Then they'll send Dog the bounty hunter to go get you. Then, once they get you, the court hopefully gives them back the money. Let's say you want to hire a contractor to remodel your house. You are the customer. You would make the contractor buy the bond. So the contractor would be the principal, the obligor. They'd buy a bond from the surety in the amount of the remodel. Then they would guarantee to you, the obligee, that the contractor will finish the job. What you've just asked the contractor to do was buy a performance bond. A performance bond guarantees that the contractor will finish the performance of that contract. So let's say the contractor bought the bond and they're remodeling your kitchen and they just left town. Done. Disappeared. You, the obligee, can go to the insurance company and they'll give you money to hire a new contractor. Then the insurance company goes after the contractor to get their money back. So like when you buy a bond, it's not really liability insurance. It doesn't protect you because if you don't finish your job, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, the obligee gets paid. But then the insurance company comes after you to try and get their money back. So bonds do not protect the purchaser. They just guarantee that you will complete your job. So the principal is the obligor. That's the one who buys the bond. You buy it from a surety, and then the obligee is the person who the promise is made to. There are three parties to a bond, and the one that completes a contract is known as a performance bond. There's also something known as a fidelity bond, which protects the company if the employee or owners or officer steals from the company. So like, we talked a little bit earlier about crime and how crime does not cover employee theft. So what the businesses do is they buy a fidelity bond, also known as a fiduciary bond, which if somebody in the company steals from the company, the bond will pay it back. And then the insurance company goes after the person who stole from them. So crime insurance doesn't cover employee theft, but fidelity and fiduciary bonds protect the company if somebody steals. If you have a big business and you have an inside accountant, you really definitely want a fiduciary bond, also known as a fidelity bond, to protect your business if somebody embezzles from your company. That is the end of the crime and bonding chapter. This is going to be a relatively small portion of your test. Make sure you understand that burglary requires the visible force signs of entry or exit. Safe burglary is if somebody steals your safe or breaks into your safe as long as you didn't leave it open. Robbery is the threat of violence. Theft is any act of stealing. And that we know the three parties to a bond, which is a principal, surety, and obligee.